All right, class, this is what we're going to be making. If you happen to have some cotton fabric, maybe a little bit of elastic, piece of bias tape, or even just extra fabric that we can do, as well as a paper clip, gosh, help me make some masks for people that need it in our healthcare industry. They are so short on masks and they're desperate. So let's jump on the bandwagon. Let's help out some people. So the first thing that you're going to need is a piece of fabric that is 9 by 12. I just use some of my cotton, like quilted fabrics that I have. So 9 by 12. It won't be that big when we're done. We're folding it in half. They need it to be 2-ply at least. You need 2 pieces of elastic that's either 1/4 of an inch or 3/8 of an inch thick. And that needs to be 6.5 inches long, each one of them, so both of them. So they're going to be what helps hold the mask on. It wraps around the wearer's ears. You also need a piece of bias tape or a piece of fabric that's about 3.5 inches long. That's what we're going to put on the inside. That's what I put on the inside of this one at the top to help hold that piece of metal so it doesn't scratch them. I was going to try to zigzag it, but that didn't work. So I think making a little casing here works out really well. Get a large paper clip. You're going to, people have used other things too. They used floral wire. They used bread ties and things. They're not very stiff. This is really good and stiff. My daughter Whitney gave me this idea. So open this up, straighten it out, and cut it in half. These are just needle nose pliers. They have a cutter right here in the middle. Don't use your scissors to cut that in half. So use the wire cutter portion of your needle nose. Ask anybody at home. Maybe they've got something like that. Or if you've done jewelry, you've got some tools probably, because that's where I got this, was from Jewelry Supplies. I pulled those out and I just wrapped the end of the paper clip around the end of the jewelry needle nose pliers there to make a nice little loop so that it doesn't scratch the wearer. We're going to come back to this in a little bit, but that's the first thing we got to do is get those supplies. So what I did was I cut my piece of fabric. It is 6 inches by 12. Then I want you to go to the ironing board and I want you to fold it in half. And I want you to match your edges even. And you're going to fold it in half, wrong sides together, and you're going to make a permanent crease right there. Just really good and crisp. And we want to do that so that we don't have to worry about it later, that the mask, when it turns, will turn perfectly on that crisp edge. And it also gives us a mark, because then we're going to open it up. When we open this up, we're going to find right at the edge where we're going to put our 2 pieces of elastic. So let me show you what that looks like. The next one. So I've got my crease right here, and I'm going to put my end of my elastic here and my end of the other end of the elastic down here. It doesn't, it has to stretch. It doesn't make it perfect, but that's okay. So when I do that, I'm going to put a pin in it, go to your sewing machine, stitch that in place. Do not baste it. It won't hold it because it's so narrow. But just stitch it 1/4 of an inch away from the edge. Do that on both sides. Just save a little bit of time. Do that. Okay? Then you don't have to worry about it. Because the next step, we're going to put right sides together like this. Let me show you what that one looks like. Boom. Just like that. So everything is all pinned together. And you know what's in between here is that elastic. When we made our one Ort bags, remember we had the straps in between and we couldn't find them. When we turn this right side out, those pieces of elastic are going to pop out. So this is all pinned, right sides together. Make sure you do that. And you can see in between there, you've got that elastic. It's sandwiched in there ready. All right. So then we're going to stitch it. When we stitch, we're going to start at the fold. We're going to pivot at the corner. We're going to stop here because we got to leave an opening so we can turn this puppy right side out. Then we're going to start again, back stitch, pivot, back down to the fold and back stitch. Let me show you what that looks like. I stitched with dark thread so you could see it, but I back stitched several times because you know that elastic's underneath there and we want to make sure it's held really tight. Come down here, back stitch again across there, pivot, get down here, probably about 3 inches or so, back stitch really well, make a nice gap, back stitch again, stitch to the corner. You're going to pivot, back stitch, back stitch. You don't have to start and stop, just keep on back stitching. Then go all the way up here to the end and back stitch. Trim your threads. Trim your corner across the end so we get rid of that extra bulk. We'll make sure we do that. And then when we turn it right side out, this is what it's, This is what it's going to look like. It won't have the marks yet, but that's what it's going to look like. All right. It still kind of pulls, but it's okay because we're going to pleat this end. So that's what I have on my paper. I have the instructions about pleating it. So you're going to make 6 marks. 6 on this side and 6 on the other side. We're going to start, you can use your blue water soluble marker, or if you don't have that, use your pins. Just make it a mark with your pins. The first one is 1 inch down from the edge, and then this one's 3/4 of an inch from each one of those. So these are just 3/4 of an inch away from each other, and there's a total of 6. This is almost 1 inch, but you're going to do that same thing, on the other side. And it's because we're going to start at the top. We're going to make this first. We just bring this pleat right down on top of there. And we're going to put a pin through it. And we'll do the same thing with this one. And we're going to put a pin through it. And we'll do the same thing on this third and final one and put a pin through it. When you do that, it'll look like this. Wait, let's see here. We'll turn around. It'll look like that, where we have our pleats. Try and get them all lined up. Mine are kind of pulling apart a little bit because I've thrown it around so much. But make sure that your edges are even. Do the same thing on this side. Make sure that the pleats are going in the same direction as they are on this side. You want them all going down or all going up, but don't do one side one way and one side the other. So when I pull this back, so you can see these are going down and these are going down. Then you're going to start stitching, and you'll start stitching right up here. Honestly, I didn't want to stitch across that thick elastic to start with, so I started on this top edge where it's nice and smooth. Really easy. There's just where my crease was that I put in there to begin with, and then you're going to pivot and you're going to stitch all the way down as close to that edge, like I always tell you when you're edge stitching. And when you do it, guess what you're going to press shut or stitch shut? You're going to press that opening. That's going to get all stitched shut. And then you're going to pivot here, come up here, go all the way around. It's going to look like that when you're done. You're going to do it 2 times. The thing that I don't normally stitch 2 times around, but you know what? This is going to get washed a lot, and it needs to endure that. So stitch it all the way around as close as you can to each other, all the way around 2 times. Once you do that, take your piece of bias tape, center it at the top, and you're going to stitch it on. Let me show you what it looks like on this one. You're going to leave an opening at the end, at one of the ends. I don't care which one, it doesn't really matter. Back stitch, stitch down, pivot, pivot, come back here, back stitch. And then you're going to take that one piece that you bent, and you're going to push that down inside there. Once you do, back stitch across there, and your piece will be done. It'll look just like that. All right. If you have any questions, email Mrs. Rice, arice@bhm.k12.in.us, and let's see how many we can get made of these. I have given out several and getting ready to go into production and see how many more I can do. All right. Have a good one. 3 things I forgot to tell you. First of all, when you put this elastic, this one is about 1/4 of an inch from the edge down here at the bottom. This one's super close right up here to that fold. See where that crease is? It wants to fold right there. So put it right beside it. Like that. That'll be where that crease is. That's why I had you do that. Mark that with that crease. So you knew where to put the elastic. We don't want it up here and we don't want it down here. So put it right beside that crease, and then down here 1/4 of an inch. Same thing on this side. Whoop. On this side. Same concept. Gonna be right super close. Okay? And 1/4 of an inch down there. All right. So that was one thing I forgot to tell you. Then, the other thing is when you turn it right side out, press this. Press this, make it pretty. Make sure you get this nice and even. Don't forget the edges that we turned it go on the inside, so they should be nice and even, nice and crisp. Just press it all the way around so it looks really good. All right. The other thing is that when you add this piece, it goes on the inside of your mask. It doesn't go on the outside, so that individual, the wearer, can bend this so it fits their nose. But we want that up against them. We don't want it on the outside. All right. Make sure that you do that. All right. All right. I think that's all I forgot. I'm sure there's more, but I hope that helps you when you put your mask together. All right. Happy sewing.